Welcome to the Vibrantly You podcast. We're your hosts, Megan Martineau.
And Caitlin Cipriano. In this podcast, we talk about fitness and nutrition on your motherhood journey. Whether you are trying to conceive, pregnant, postpartum, or beyond, you are welcome here.
Nothing is off limits, and our goal is to support you in this important season of life so that you can feel vibrantly you. As a reminder, this information is not medical advice. Please see the show notes for more details. Welcome back to the Vibrantly You podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about some cringy trends, topics that we see floating around, especially on social media, but really on like blogs, just the internet in general. So today we're doing an episode on pregnancy. Our next episode, we'll be talking about the cringy postpartum trends. So the trends we're going to talk about today are eating for two during pregnancy. And then we're also going to talk about having a belly only pregnancy or like training for a belly only pregnancy. So let's start with this. I don't even know if you would call this a trend, but I feel like this is just something you hear all the time, right? Like, oh, I'm eating for two. I'm eating for two. So, as a perinatal nutritionist, Caitlin, what's your take on this?
I think from my understanding, right, is that this is sort of like a saying that started because now you're not only just like, focusing on yourself, you're focusing on supporting baby, and it sort of like ended up swinging to that extreme to where people really feel like they need to like eat significantly, maybe more, right,
Hmm.
than they really need. And it's not necessarily focusing on like increasing the quality or the specific nutrients that are needed. And so I like to think about it instead as like we're not eating for two, but we're nourishing for two. And there's a really like big difference and distinction in
Yeah.
that. And I think it feels different when you say it that way.
Yeah, because I feel too like when people talk about eating for two, they're kind of using it as like a like guilt-free way, of being like, oh, I'm gonna have ice cream every night, or like, oh, I want to go get that Big Mac at McDonald's because they're like, I'm eating for two, I'm eating for two. It's not like bad to indulge in food during pregnancy. That's definitely not what we're saying. But I do think that's when that phrase comes up a lot, right? Is like people justifying like giving into their cravings.
Yeah, and I think this is like a good point to like talk about cravings a little bit because they are pretty common during pregnancy. And I like to ask people like, where is the craving stemming from? Are you craving like um more processed foods? Or is there like more of a like actual like nutrient need that your body is trying to relay? Because sometimes you could be like, I'm craving a burger, right? And that could very well be like your body's way of saying like, I need more iron, please, versus like, do you just want to have like gummy bears, you know? And so I think it's just like important to always sort of like ask yourself these questions. It's okay to get a little curious and be like, where do I feel like this is coming from? Is this coming from just a like comfort place, which also like that's okay too, but like, or is there really like a need that my body is trying to relay this message to me? Do you feel like when you, like in either of your pregnancies, like you had specific cravings?
Um, for some reason, in my first pregnancy with my son, I was craving like chicken a lot. Don't know what that would have meant.
Hmm.
But like fried chicken specifically. I remember just like that was the only thing I wanted to eat. And it was really just in the first trimester. Like once I moved past that, I was really able to like eat normally, I feel like, with him. In
Hmm.
the second, I just didn't want anything. That's when like my aversions were really, really bad. I want to say like later on though. Hmm. It was kind of like vinegary things that I was craving. I don't know if that means anything either.
I kind of feel like sometimes there is like salty or like vinegary cravings, and it probably because like those like hydration needs increase. We also just sometimes do need like more salt
Hmm.
as well. And I definitely had that happen a couple of times that I can remember in both of my pregnancies, where it's just like I really just like some Lay's potato chips right now, which was like I just need salt.
Yeah, that's so
So
funny.
yeah, because otherwise I'm not really like a big like chip like person
Yeah, me
just in
either,
general.
really.
So like which again, there's like nothing wrong, right, with like including these types of foods in a regular diet, like regardless of like being pregnant, like we can sprinkle these kinds of things in and enjoy them. Um, so I think that when we're talking about like this whole piece with like reframing, not just like eating for two, it is important to like understand that we're not like demonizing food as good or bad. We're really like wanting to focus on like increasing the like quality and specific nutrients to support both mom and baby. And there are like specific calorie needs as you go through your pregnancy. So, the first trimester, there's really like no additional calories that are needed. Um, it's really just like honestly trying to do the best that you can during this time because like we've talked about like nausea, aversion, just like really generally like low energy are such like hallmarks of this time period. And so it's like eat what you feel like you can tolerate. Like, don't get too caught up with like super specific nutrients at this time. And then in the second trimester, though, your body does need an increase. So, like, about 300 to like 400 more calories, per day on average. Obviously, everyone has their own, specific needs, but general recommendation is around that. And then in the third trimester, it does bump up again to be like more between like 400 to 500 calories per day. So, when you think about that, it's really not double, right? It is like, okay, we need like a solid, like extra snack or like another maybe small meal to, help support your needs. It's not like a full second dinner or something like that. Um, but it is important to make sure that you are listening to your body and you are eating enough, when you can.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like
So,
thinking of it more as like an extra snack or small meal and not because also if you're thinking about like, for math's sake, like if the average person's eating 2,000 calories a day and by the third trimester you only need an extra 500, that's clearly not eating for two, right? Like if you were eating for two, it'd be like 4,000 calories a day. Big difference.
yeah, there is a big difference. And so I don't know, for me, I like to think about it as like, okay, like normally when I would have a snack, like maybe it would just be like a smoothie or a Greek yogurt bowl, during the day. I think I talked about in my like, what I eat in a day normally. Like I don't normally have like a morning snack because I'm just not typically like hungry if I've done like a pretty good job with my breakfast. So like during pregnancy though, I might need to make like a snack plate. And it's like a good snack plate, I've got like apple slices and cheese and crackers, and it's like nice and well rounded. And we've got some good like nutrients in there to be supportive. So it's sort of thinking about like, where do I like insert something additional because my energy needs are increased and I am more hungry. It's important to like, the pregnancy is like a really good time to like get in tune with your body and like understand those like hunger and fullness cues and where they're coming from.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah. And do you want to talk about just quickly some like what are those nutritional needs that increase?
Yeah, I'll go over some like really key ones here too, but I think we do have the podcast episode that does go into the trimester needs on a basis. What episode number is that? I'm trying to
32, episode
Episode
32.
32. So if you really want key nutrients for each trimester, I have a solo episode that goes into this like in detail. But let's talk about big ones. So protein needs are definitely increasing during pregnancy. This one is definitely very important for you. So if you're someone that's like has struggled with protein even before pregnancy, I think this can be rather difficult, but it is something I would encourage people to be really intentional about because it does help with baby's growth, the placenta, and also your blood during pregnancy. Um, Another really important one is iron. Your needs double, almost double when you're pregnant, which is very significant. And a lot of people do have like a risk for anemia, especially as you do get further into like the second and third trimesters. Um, and we always talk about like, folic acid, especially in early pregnancy for that neural tube development. And then calcium and vitamin D are always helpful too for both baby's skeletal development and also your bone health. And then let's see, omega 3s would be like another one to try to be intentional with. A lot of people don't get enough from like fish in their diet. A lot of
Hmm.
people aren't eating fish like 2 to 3 times a week. So this is somewhere that a lot of people probably are going to need to supplement with a good omega-3 fish oil. So, I would say those are the biggies. But again, if you want to like hear me dive more into that, go check out episode 32.
Hearing all those, nutritional needs and like what the baby needs, like I think just helps to reframe of that, like rather than eating for two and just thinking more about like, oh, I get to have so many more calories, just thinking about like how it really is like nourishing and helping baby's development and also making sure you stay healthy too. Because I think we've talked about this in the other episodes, but like nutrients get pulled from your body to go to the baby.
Yes.
So we also want to make sure that you are staying healthy in the process too.
Yeah, and I think it's like, this is meant to be like empowering. I think it's just really important to be intentional and just know that the, what you consume is like the foundation and the building blocks for your baby. And it does matter and it does make a difference. And this isn't meant to like scare or fearmonger anyone. You obviously don't need to be perfect. It's all about just like doing the best that you can do to be supportive of yourself during this pretty like challenging but also amazing time.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is also a great segue into talking about the belly-only pregnancy because this also kind of goes hand in hand with like gaining weight, right, in pregnancy. So to talk about like what exactly a belly-only pregnancy is, because I know I've talked about this a little bit on social media, and sometimes people are like, what? Like that's a thing. So what I have seen at least, and the popularity around this is basically people are saying they want a belly-only pregnancy, which means only gaining the weight of the baby and only wanting weight or changes in the belly. So basically, like achieving minimal weight gain where like your limbs look the same. Even saying it sounds so ridiculous. But
I can't believe this is a thing.
so
Like you're
basically, like, yeah, like people want to look like they're wearing a fake belly, essentially, right? Um, and I have seen different accounts, like even just like mommy, like influencers, like talk about this. Like, here's how I had my belly only pregnancy and trying to give out tips. I have even seen workout programs geared towards this. Like, here's how you're going to get your belly only pregnancy, like giving a whole workout plan or, um, like specific exercises and things that are supposedly going to help. And so reasons why this is unrealistic. Obviously, we just talked about all of the reasons why you need to be paying attention to your nutrition because your nutritional needs increase during pregnancy, and not just for you, but for baby as well, right? And so, as you were saying, like for the third trimester, you're having to eat an additional 450 to 500 calories a day. And your baby needs this, right? So if we're focusing on like trying to not gain weight, or I've even seen some people like want to lose weight in pregnancy, you're gonna be pulling nutrients away from you or your baby. And we don't want to do that for many reasons. So it's not realistic for that because your body and baby need nutrients. We also have to take into account hormonal changes in pregnancy. Obviously, you're going through so many hormonal changes, more progesterone being a big one. I think estrogen increases too. I'm not fully up to date on all the hormonal changes that happen in pregnancy, but obviously things are elevated, right? And so different people's bodies are going to react differently to those hormonal changes. And sometimes that means gaining weight. I mean, same thing for like menopause, right? Like with hormonal changes, a lot of people experience weight gain as they move through those. And so you can't control the hormonal changes you're going through in pregnancy and how your body is going to respond to that. So that's something to take into account.
And like this is so crazy to me too because I know like also there's like genetic roles that are like played here. And also like you can have like a different like pregnancy to pregnancy like experience with things. Like I know with with my son, I think I gained about like 35 pounds. But then like when I had my daughter, I like really only gained like 12 or 15 and I really didn't do like that much differently. Like it was very like a very similar approach. I mean, I knew more information and ways to support myself better, but like, it was not a vastly drastically different experience.
Right. And like, I think that's a great point too. Like, pregnancy to pregnancy, it's going to be different. And I do think genetics are huge too. That's also something we can't control and something that I feel like comes into play even with postpartum recovery and like bouncing back, like, or not getting stretch marks. People are like, how do I not get stretch marks? And it's like, you can do all the creams and the butters and all the things, but like, if you are genetically like predisposed to getting like if your mother got stretch marks and your grandmother's and like you're probably going to get stretch marks. You can't control these things, and I think it's kind of silly. Well, I don't want to say silly. I think it is predatory for people
Yes.
to take this fear that people have of gaining too much weight in pregnancy, right? Because I think that is what's coming up for a lot of people, right? They're afraid of gaining too much weight in pregnancy and not being able to lose the weight postpartum. And so that's why they're like trying to seek these things out. And then people are like capitalizing on that and like trying to monetize people's fears,
Yeah.
right? And like set up these unrealistic expectations. So then when inevitably you don't have a belly only pregnancy, you feel like a failure and you're like, well, I didn't work hard enough, or I didn't eat well enough, or I didn't do this, that, and the other thing. And I really want to challenge people to instead, kind of like how you said with the nutrition, like think more about like, okay, here's all the changes your body is going through and the increased need for yourself nutritionally as well as your baby. And like, let's think more about like how we can eat to support that. I want people to think about their exercise and their workouts in that same way, like thinking about all of the changes that are happening during pregnancy. I know we've talked about this in other episodes, but like you're having so many postural changes. You are experiencing, rapid growth, obviously, in your belly, which like contributes to core weakness. Like changes to your pelvic floor. So trying to think more about those and like, okay, how can I support my body in this? Or how can I try to prevent aches and pains, through exercise? Like using exercise to make your body feel better rather than like, I only want my belly to get bigger. And, even have like stronger legs to support your pregnancy, to get you ready for labor. And also remembering that all of the exercise that you do in pregnancy is going to help you with your postpartum recovery. Like you're getting a jump on that postpartum recovery by doing it in exercise. So I think trying to reframe things of like, how can I support my body and the changes that it's going through and use exercise to just feel good? Like I know for me and also a lot of other people I've spoken to, they feel better when they're moving their bodies in pregnancy. Unfortunately, like we all wish this was so, right? That like we just felt better when we relaxed on the couch in pregnancy. But for many people, that is not what's happening. They feel better when their body is in motion. So trying to use exercise just as a way to feel better. And I think it's fine to be aware of the weight gain recommendations, right? They're there for a reason, but I don't think you need to get stuck on them or like obsess over them, I mean, like, oh, how much weight have I gained? There's someone that I know who is pregnant and is like a former eating disorder recovery. She went through recovery for eating disorder. So in her pregnancy, she specifically asked them, like, I don't want to see my weight. Like, obviously, you can take my weight, but I don't want to see it. I don't want it like shown on my chart. Like, I know that like I'm healthy. Like if you have concerns, for sure, talk to me about them, but I don't need to see my weight going up at every appointment. And they were completely accommodating with that. And I know I've seen other people do that as well. So like if the weight gain makes you nervous, that's certainly something that you can ask your providers about.
I've even noticed at my OBGYN, I think this started when during maybe even my pregnancy, is they would just like ask like, do you like want to have your weight taken? And then or like, do you know what your weight like around what your weight is? So like oftentimes I wasn't even stepping on the scale. So I think providers are like being very aware of this and are like more than happy to accommodate if you have these types of concerns or like a, previous history, like you mentioned, of this person you're giving the example of.
Yeah, so I think it's just one of those things like advocate for yourself, when you're at your appointments and just let them know that that's something that you don't want to know unless it's like negatively impacting your pregnancy or your baby. And I think typically they are supportive in that. So we're gonna wrap up this episode, and I think, these were really I feel like we gave some really helpful reframes here and just trying to focus more on like staying healthy throughout your pregnancy, really nourishing your body, and then just moving in a way that is also going to make you feel better in your pregnancy.
And so, if you're listening to this today and you have a friend that you can think of that this episode might be helpful for, please share our podcast with them. We'd also love to hear from you. You can find us on the Vibrantly You podcast on Instagram or Megan's handle, Vibrant Mama Wellness. And I'm at Wholesome Huntress Nutrition. And we'll look forward to having you listen next time.